If there was any questioning or reservations in regards to Cowboy linebacker Nick Martin and defensive end Collin Oliver's draftability with the top 5 performances they're putting up in several categories, it appears to me as those questions have now become answers.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well, on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we get to jump right into the conversation of some of the things that Collin Oliver and Nick Martin have done in this NFL Combine have definitely raised some eyebrows, but in the positive variety. Both of these individuals we have seen at Oklahoma State be categorized as too small or the tweener classification to some degree. But thankfully, the invite to the NFL Combine have been able to answer some of those questions. Currently, as it sits, the NFL Combine is talking about guys like Nick Martin and, of course, Collin Oliver, because when it comes to Collin Oliver, the defensive end, he is number 2 at the draft in 40 time, right? He's also been able to be very impressive with a 10 split of a 1.57, which is number 2 at the Combine. His vertical is number 3 at the Combine with 39 inches. His broad jump of 10 feet, 6 inches is good for number 3 at the NFL Draft Combine. This should put him in a position to be a late round individual, regardless of the classification that he might find himself within. And likewise, Nick Martin is doing equally as well. He was able to put forth the top 5, number 5 overall broad jump with 10 foot 3 inches. On top of that, his vertical, it was also shown to be extremely impressive by putting up a number that all of us would be lucky to get to, and that is 38 inches in the vertical. He also has a baseball level 10 split coming in at number 4 at the Combine with a 1.54. So Nick Martin and Collin Oliver are top 5 in a lot of these classifications, but you also have to take in consideration the metrics. Collin Oliver was measured at 6'2", 241 pounds with a 30 3/4 inch arm span, 9.5 inch hands, which gives him a production score of 69, an athleticism score of 80, and a total score of 69, which would put him in the top 25 in both categories. His athleticism score would put him as the 7th best defensive end in the Combine. The 4.5 40-yard dash, the 1.57 10 split, the 39-inch vertical, the 10.6 broad jump, those are all extremely impressive numbers. And from a size comparison, he may be a little off from Emmanuel Ogbah, but I do want to take a peek at what the last defensive end that really has been able to make a massive name for himself in the NFL for Oklahoma State, and that is Emmanuel Ogbah. When you look at Emmanuel Ogbah compared to Collin Oliver at the Combine, Emmanuel came in at 6'4", 273 pounds, 35.5 wingspan with a 10-inch hand. So obviously he is bigger than Collin Oliver, but the next-gen stats, I think, are going to be a pretty good indication of where he could fall. The production score was an 88. Athleticism score was actually below Collin Oliver's. Of course, the total score was up there. A 4.63 40-yard dash is impressive, but it is not as fast as Collin Oliver's. The 1.6 10-yard split is pretty impressive, but not as good as Collin Oliver's. The 35.5-inch vertical, okay, yeah, you got to give props. You got to give props there, right? You got to give credit where credit is due. So a lot of these categories, of course, Collin Oliver is going to be a little bit behind where Emmanuel Ogbah was. But nonetheless, a lot of this is impressive because the vertical jump is pretty impressive at 39 as opposed to Emmanuel Ogbah's 35. Emmanuel Ogbah had a 10-1 broad jump compared to Collin Oliver's 10-6. So when you look at the success that Collin Oliver is able to have in the NFL, from a numerical perspective, Collin Oliver actually edges out Emmanuel Ogbah in a decent number of categories. So I think that should give us a decent indication of what Collin Oliver could potentially be. Now, the tweener classification used to be somewhat problematic, but nowadays it is not as much anymore. It's more indicative, I think, of the potential of that that particular athlete. And then, of course, Nick Martin is putting up crazy numbers, but this is somewhat indicative of what we saw out of Collin Martin or Malcolm Rodriguez. Sorry, coming in at 5'11 and a half, pretty reminiscent, with 221 pounds, an official 31 3/4 inch arm span with 9 1/4 hands. A production score of 70 would rank him 8th. His athleticism is 82, which would rank him 5th. Total score overall, 74, which would rank him 6th. He has a 4.53 40-yard dash compared to Malcolm Rodriguez, 4.52. And it was just 1/10 of a second off of Danny Stutzman, which was there was a lot of comparisons a couple of years ago, as there should have been. But you also continue it down with Nick Martin, a 1.54-10 split, which is a good baseball style of number, is almost identical to Malcolm Rodriguez of 1.52. The 38-inch vertical jump is pretty reminiscent of the 39.5 vertical jump put forth by Malcolm Rodriguez. 10 foot 3 inches on the broad jump is actually more than Malcolm Rodriguez, 10 foot flat. He also was top 5 in the bench press number. He was tied for first place at the combine in bench press with 26 reps at 225 pounds. When you look at Malcolm Rodriguez, comparatively speaking, with Nick Martin, the comparisons are there. It makes a ton of sense to put these two next to each other because Malcolm Rodriguez was also 5'11", 232 pounds, pretty comparable on the length. Nick Martin has him beat by a little bit. Same can be said with the hand size. They're pretty comparable there. So we know what Malcolm Rodriguez and Emmanuel Ogbah have been able to do in the NFL. And if you look at the combine numbers that both of those individuals put up, there are a lot of similarities to what Nick Martin is able to do, as well as Collin Oliver. So these are two dudes that might be chosen in the later rounds, but if they continue to be top 5 in every metric physically possibly available at the combine, they are going to creep into more conversations. They're going to creep into more draft boards, and this could be another opportunity to have a number of Cowboys that are drafted on top of what Ollie Gordon is about to do. We're waiting with the anticipation of the numbers that Nick Martin and Collin Oliver are putting up in conjunction with the excitement level building for Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon is being undervalued right now, and out of all three of these dudes, most of the conversations were going to be about Ollie Gordon. But Nick Martin was able to do some things at the Senior Bowl, as was Ollie Gordon, that should be able to transfer over here. And now that executives and scouts have put eyeballs on him at the Senior Bowl, and now they've seen it at the Combine, it makes the most amount of sense that because of the doors that Malcolm Rodriguez opened, Nick Martin should be drafted ahead of where Malcolm Rodriguez was. And Collin Oliver, he might be a late-round guy. He might be an unsigned free agent. But nonetheless, that tweener classification is going to be the only limiting factor in him having an insane amount of success as well. Both of these individuals are classified as above average, good backup pieces in the NFL. That is pretty indicative of what we got out of Malcolm Rodriguez to some degree, and even Emmanuel Ogbah. So I like the comparisons here, and I like numerically where these guys stack up to the most recent Cowboys that have not only gone through the process, been drafted, but also are continuing long NFL careers. This could be something that is similar for their future. And when you're thinking of your future, you never really understand how fast life can come at you, and it can also get derailed just as easily and quickly as well. When you're thinking of securing the future for yourself and your children, you need to pay attention to what is currently going on by Fabric, partners with Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life. It allows you to focus on watching your kids and they're taking their first steps and hitting home runs and going off to school before they head off to college, all while securing their future. It's extremely important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for life term insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, there's no health exam required. This is going to give you the peace of mind because every single parent wants to know that there's some financial security and protection no matter what happens. Affordable coverage is massively beneficial for you. And you also can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. So protecting your loved ones in their entirety does not have to break the bank. Beyond life insurance, Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes and meet fabric.com/lockedoncollege. That is meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Go there today. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Fabric by Gerber Life. This is the best thing that you need to do to ensure that there's less stress, less worrying, more coverage, and that peace of mind is the biggest takeaway that you could physically possibly have. This is the best solution for you and your family to secure a future and avoid some of the chaos that comes with unplanned events in life. Get with Fabric by Gerber today. We'll shift gears a little bit here as the Cowgirls just got a very big win in softball against number 16 ranked Nebraska Lady Cornhuskers. The reason this was a big deal is because Ruby Meylan, a Nebraska native, is supposed to be the ace that the Cowgirls can rely on no matter what takes place. And she was that today. And she also went up against the multiple-time national champion from OU, Jordy Ball. I forgot that she transferred to Nebraska, but the storylines kind of write themselves because they're both, Ruby Meylan and Jordy Ball, are from the state of Nebraska. So they grew up playing with each other and against each other most of their careers. I don't know if their paths crossed a whole lot in college, but nonetheless, you have one of the best aces in all of collegiate softball for the last 3 or 4 years going up against another Nebraska native, Ruby Meylan. And Ruby did exactly what we all hoped that she would be able to do coming over from Washington. And it's been, I don't want to say hit and miss because she is 6-0, but it hasn't been in dominant fashion. Today was pretty dominant. She allowed the All-American, who's also an ace herself, Jordy Ball, to only get one hit. And that was at the very end of the game. So you got to give a little bit of a shout out to Jordy. She did get a hit and get on base in the final inning, in the final few at-bats to give Nebraska a chance, but it wasn't enough because Ruby dialed it back in and set down the next couple batters. That was it. It was over. Pop up, game winner. The Cowgirls continue to kind of find their footing, and the Cowboys now have the opportunity to do the same. When you looked at that Clemson ball game, I felt like we were the better ball club. Yet Clemson is a top 10 team for a reason. Yet the Cowboys now have an opportunity to prove that having Clemson up against the wall and having opportunities to win the game, even with the umpires literally getting in the way, we have a chance to prove it. And you know, that loss to Texas State is actually not looking so bad because they turn around and beat up on LSU. So turns out Texas State, pretty good ball club. Their coach has been there for about 6 years. They've got one of the best pitchers in not only the country, but the conference right now. So they're going to be fun to pay attention to. Texas State is going to give people fits all year long. So that loss looks a little bit more bearable. But none of that matters if you can take down number 1, number 2, and number 15 this weekend. The Cowboys are about to take on number 1 or number 2, depending on what poll you look at, Tennessee. The other poll is flipped in reverse with Texas A&M 1 and Tennessee 2. So regardless, we're about to play the number 1 ranked team in the country and the number 2 ranked team in the country in order before we take on number 15 ranked Mississippi State. If Oklahoma State does find a way to win 2 of 3, or crazy things have happened, win all 3, that should set us up for a Big 12 title. That should set us up for a run at Omaha. You got to get out of regionals. You got to get to super regionals. We've always had the talent, right? We've always had multiple draft picks. We just haven't been able to kind of string it all together. But if you can beat number 1 in the country, Tennessee, number 2 in the country, Texas A&M, number 15 in the country, Mississippi State, respectfully, there's not going to be a whole lot in the Big 12 that's going to be a huge wall for you winning a championship. Of course, Kansas looks pretty remarkable right now. They haven't really stepped up in level of competition quite yet, so that'll be interesting to follow along with. K-State seems to have found their footing. They just had back-to-back top 25 W's after kind of, starting the season not so hot. So Kansas State is finding their groove. Arizona State, I watched every single game against Ohio State. Is Ohio State the cream of the crop when it comes to baseball? No, not exactly, but they've made it look pretty convincing. They have a decent staff. They can hit for power. They can play some small ball. So this is going to be an exciting time for Big 12 baseball, but none of it is going to stack up to the likes of Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State on a nightly basis. The beauty of baseball is anybody can pop up and beat anybody for a ball game. This is why the series of 3 games is so pivotal to really making a determination, because winning one game is not impossible, because your ace, your star pitcher could be having an off day. You could be short on the staff. You could be having some injuries at the lineup. There's a lot of factors that are built into the equations on one game, okay? But that's why this 3-game set is important, because you take on 3 of the best teams in all of college baseball, and they have been, historically speaking, even. So it's not going to be, a mistake. If you win one of 3, then that could be a flash in the pan. Okay, we have talent. But if you win 2 of these 3, or again, you win all 3, then that completely changes the outlook and the trajectory of what this team could look like. Because losing to Clemson after beating them for most of the game, yeah, that's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. Losing to Texas because we got the doors blown off of us in the later innings, yeah, that hurts because it's Texas. Now, again, the loss to Texas State is looking much better week by week. We've been anticipating Gabe Davis fully healthy, and it appears as though this might be the first opportunity for us to see a fully functioning, fully healthy Gabe Davis on the proper amount of work in the week to lead him up to this game. Who we see Saturday, that's going to be interesting. Could be Ethan Lund, could be Noah Wack. Ryan Urey looked really good the other day, so he's obviously not going to be available for this weekend for a starting role. Is Harrison Bodendorf going to be the Sunday guy? It kind of looks like it. Are we going to get to see more of Mario Pesha? Because his couple outings, I've been pretty impressed thus far. Is he going to be a dominant closer? It's very possible. But we've also got another individual with a 1.29 ERA, that Sean Youngerman, that is one of the tops in the Big 12, one of the tops in the country. Could he be that dominant closer? There's still a lot to be determined here, but talent's not a problem. It's managing the roster that's going to be able to set the expectations, and this 3-game stretch should set our expectations as well. You can dismiss the Clemson game, you can dismiss the Texas game, you can dismiss Texas State game if you get 2 of these 3 W's, especially if you beat number 1 and number 2. If you beat number 15 Mississippi State, that's great, but if you take down number 1 and number 2, towards the end of the season, the RPI, the strength of schedule, all of these things that are factored into if you're going to be a host site, if you're going to be one of the top 16, if you're going to be one of the top 8 to have an opportunity at a super regionals, this stuff will come into play. So we're about to find out. Are the Cowboys just still kind of figuring things out, or are we legitimately super regional Omaha contenders right here, right now with this roster? As time progresses, you're going to expect some dudes to get better. You're going to expect to see some of the advancements on the mound like we are seeing with Carrie Eberly and the softball girls. We should be able to see the same thing out of the Cowboys. Talent is not a problem. It's getting it done, and that's really all we have left to do. Take care of Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State, and then we're having conversations about Omaha for sure, instead of just getting to supers for sure, because we need to. We're about to find out a lot about this ball club. As we're finding out where the Cowboys stack up in the national baseball picture, you can take the opportunity to figure out where you stack up in March basketball madness. It's almost here, and there's not a better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks. It is the best daily fantasy sports you can get your hands on. With PrizePicks, you just simply pick more or less on 2 different players' projections. And if you are right, you can get up to 1,000 times your cash. It is that fast, easy, and keeps the game exciting for you. You can build lineups. Like this week, you could be looking for Jason Tatum to drop more than 29 points or Anthony Davis to have more than 12 rebounds. It can be as quick, easily, and painless as you want it to be, with incredibly fast payouts that can hit your bank account in less than 15 minutes. With the Taco Tuesday deals, PrizePicks even offers weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Get with PrizePicks so you can have the opportunity to win and run your game. All right, so now we get to wrap this thing up here with wrestling. And yes, the Iowa duel is going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth, as it should. We did not show up, and Iowa did. You got to give credit where credit's due. But we can erase some of that sour taste with making a good show of ourselves at the Big 12s. Now, this is the last 2 years we have not won the Big 12 championship in wrestling. We've allowed Missouri to win it. We've allowed Iowa State to win it. This should be our opportunity, but it's not going to be easy. Just like getting some redemption against Iowa in nationals is also not going to be easy. The Cowboys have several individuals that I think could and should win Big 12 championships, but that doesn't change the fact that it's not going to be easy. We'll start off at 125 pounds. I do have Troy Spratley making it to the finals against Richie Figueroa of Arizona State. I know Figueroa had the ACL, so it was taking him a little bit of time to kind of get back in action, but he's been wrestling a while. He's back to his typical form. So I expect Troy Spratley to give way to Richie Figueroa in the championship, but that's a representative that should be, at least wrestling for a title. At 133, is it going to be Reese Rootcraft? Is it going to be Cale Hughes? At the end of the day, neither one of them are going to have an easy time getting past Evan Frost up at Iowa State. So I don't expect us to be in a podium situation or at least wrestling for a title at 133. 141, you do have Tegan Jamison, who needs to find a way to overcome the Cale Happel situation. The guy at Northern Iowa that has been able to best Tegan Jamison for a while now. Regardless, neither one of them, in my opinion, are beating Andrew Alirez from Northern Colorado. How Northern Colorado kept him, I don't know. Congratulations to them, but he's a bad mamma jamma. I do fully anticipate that Tegan Jamison could have the opportunity to compete for this title. If he can kind of figure out Cale Happel, then this is going to set us up for a match with Andrew Alirez for the 141-pound Big 12 championship. 149 pounds, that's another one that is probably slightly problematic. You got another Iowa State fella, Panero Johnson, that likely takes that home. Carter Young is what it is. It is what it is, and he is who he is. 157. This is another opportunity for us to perhaps get back into the conversation. Fish he's been an Ironman basically for the team this year. And I do think that he could end up wrestling Ryder Downey of Northern Iowa in the Big 12 title match. I do not necessarily think that he comes away with the W, but I do think that he'll get to the title match and he'll make a good account for himself. 165 pounds. Other than Carter Young, the other individual that's made me want to pull my hair out this year has been Cam Amin. Cam Amin is a good wrestler, a solid wrestler, but he's more defensive than offensive. And when you're going to have to take down the former Penn State Nittany Lion, Terrell Barraclough at Utah Valley, that has already proven to be a difficult proposition for Cam Amin. And then even if that does happen, then you've got to take on Peyton Hall at West Virginia. And Peyton Hall's kind of ran the 165 pounds all year in the Big 12. So The real question is, will Cam Amin be able to beat out Terrell Bearclaw for an opportunity to wrestle Peyton Hall for the title? I don't feel great about it, but if there's a time for him to all of a sudden find an offensive explosion, it'll be in the Big 12s. 174 pounds. I do have Dean Hamady Jr. winning the whole thing. This previous match he had against Iowa, he won, but you could tell he was disappointed with his performance. He knew he didn't offensively do what he normally does. He's typically an extension of the Magic Man that can do magic stuff. He didn't have it against Iowa. I expect him to have it in the Big 12s, and I also expect him to beat Keegan O'Toole. Why? Because when we wrestled Mizzou earlier in the year, Keegan O'Toole ran from competition and wanted no part of Dean Hamady Jr. Therefore, yes, his seeding is going to be higher because he played that little fun game. So congratulations. You'll get the 1 seed, but I do not see you being able to take down Dean Hamady Jr. And I have a feeling that Keegan O'Toole is somewhat hesitant to face Dean Hamady in this proposition here just because of what we just talked about. We just talked about how he did have some struggles, and he's scared. That's what it is. He's scared of Dean, so I expect Dean to get the W here and bring home a title for the Cowboys. After Dean Hamady Jr., we have 184 pounds where Dustin Plott can have his opportunity at redemption. Maybe not against an Iowa guy, but he will go against a Northern Iowa guy and Parker Kikeson. And Parker is really good. He has had Dustin's number at some point in time in his career. But this is a good time for Dustin Plott to have some vengeance. So I do think that Dustin figures it out and he takes down Parker for another Big 12 championship. Then you have 197 pounds. Luke Serber should be the favorite, is the favorite, will be the top seed. But he does have to, take down Joey Novak over at Iowa, Wyatt Volker at UNI, Zach Glazer, South Dakota State, even Nate Scone at Iowa State. So I do think Luke Serber does get the W here. He does win the title, but he's got a few guys nipping at his heels. So if he doesn't take advantage of certain situations, he might not win the title. Then I also have Wyatt Hendrickson winning the title. Why? Because the only real competition he's going to have is Colton Schultz out of Arizona State. And Arizona State, Colton Schultz is a good wrestler, but he's not on the same hemisphere as Wyatt Hendrickson. I expect Wyatt to dominate. So I have us winning at least 3 championships. I have us competing in at least 5 or 6 championships. Troy Spratley could very well get it done, but there's other weights in the middle that have been the Achilles heel for the Cowboys this season. I don't expect the Big 12s to be considerably different. It would be great if we got the performance of a lifetime out of Reese Whitcraft or Cale Hughes. It would be great if we would get that out of Carter Young. It would be great if we'd get that out of Cam Amin. But I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments section. Do you have other individuals winning Big 12 titles? Who did I get wrong? Who did I get right? Where do you see things being different? But until the next one, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State, because you could be anywhere. I'm so happy that you choose to be here. Go ahead and hit the like button for me. Share, comment, subscribe. My podcast, people out there, you're the thing that makes this an awesome ordeal. So I appreciate you. I need you to go do what you do, hit the stars, leave a review. All right, y'all. Later, taters.